In recent years, the world of bodybuilding has been marked by difficult headlines. Young athletes, promising competitors who appeared to be in the peak of physical condition, have faced serious health problems, and in some cases, unexpected deaths. Whenever something like this happens, one question immediately begins circulating among fans, experts, and even within the sport itself: what is really happening to these athletes? When a bodybuilder suffers a cardiac arrest or experiences medical complications, sometimes even during relatively routine procedures, the debate begins almost instantly. Are anabolic steroids to blame? Or is it simply a tragic coincidence? This discussion often divides opinions and sparks strong reactions, mainly because bodybuilding has always existed alongside a certain level of controversy. The truth, however, is that finding a definitive answer is rarely simple. The human body is incredibly complex, and many factors can influence what ultimately happens to an athlete. The use of anabolic substances certainly plays a role in this equation, but it is far from the only factor. There are also elements related to the extreme lifestyle required by the sport, individual genetics, and even medical conditions that could affect anyone even outside the world of bodybuilding. On top of that, many of these athletes live under constant pressure. Their physiques must always be bigger, leaner, and more impressive than before. That means extremely strict diets, intense training sessions, and daily routines that place the body under continuous stress. All of this raises an important question: how much strain can the human body realistically handle? Even with all these variables, there is one point most specialists tend to agree on: anabolic steroids can indeed place serious stress on the body, particularly on the cardiovascular system. That doesn't mean every tragic case has a single clear cause, but it does highlight that the risks are very real. To better understand the risks involved in modern bodybuilding, we need to start with something simple: the heart. Think of it as a powerful pump that never stops working, operating 24 hours a day to send blood throughout the entire body. Every muscle, every organ, and every single cell depends on that constant flow to function properly. Now imagine what happens when the body grows dramatically in size. Individuals with obesity who weigh between 120 and 130 kilograms, around 264 to 286 pounds, already place a significant burden on the heart. The organ has to work harder to ensure the entire body receives enough blood. Even at that level, the cardiovascular system is already under considerable strain. But in professional bodybuilding, the numbers can become even more extreme. Many athletes can easily reach 150 kilograms, or roughly 330 pounds, especially during the off-season. That means more body tissue that must be continuously supplied with oxygen and nutrients. And the larger the body becomes, the greater the workload placed on the heart. There's also an important detail that many people overlook: muscle requires more blood than fat. In other words, an extremely muscular physique can demand even more effort from the heart than a body that is simply heavy. That's because muscle tissue is highly metabolically active, meaning it needs far more oxygen and nutrients to sustain itself. To better understand what happens inside the body of a high-level athlete, we need to talk about anabolic hormones. These substances are known for dramatically accelerating the muscle-building process. One simple way to imagine this is to think of the body like an engine. When anabolic hormones enter the picture, it's as if someone suddenly pushes the accelerator all the way down. That forced acceleration of the body produces rapid and highly visible results. Weight increases more quickly, muscle mass grows at an accelerated rate, and recovery between workouts becomes faster. However, alongside these desired effects, important internal changes begin to occur, changes that often go unnoticed at first. One of the earliest impacts appears in blood pressure. As the body grows faster and demands greater blood circulation, the cardiovascular system must work harder. The heart pumps more forcefully, blood vessels experience greater pressure, and over time this can begin to create strain within the system. Another crucial factor involves cholesterol. Many people don't realize that testosterone itself is produced from cholesterol within the body. When a hormone like testosterone is introduced artificially, part of the cholesterol that would normally be used in that process is no longer utilized in the same way. As a result, more of it may remain circulating in the bloodstream. When people talk about anabolic steroids, most immediately think about the visible effects: bigger muscles, faster recovery, and enhanced performance. But inside the body, far quieter changes are happening. Some of these alterations can go unnoticed for a long time, sometimes until they develop into serious health problems. One of the most important effects involves something called hematocrit. This term refers to the proportion of cells present in the blood, essentially the solid part of it. Certain anabolic substances can stimulate an increase in that solid component. At first glance, this might seem beneficial for athletic performance, but it also brings significant risks. When hematocrit rises too much, the blood begins to thicken. This means it moves through the blood vessels with greater difficulty. Over time, this condition can significantly increase the risk of problems such as blood clots, circulatory complications, and even neurological issues in more severe situations. That's exactly why specialists emphasize the importance of consistent medical monitoring. For anyone who chooses to use these substances, regularly tracking lab work becomes essential. Indicators such as hematocrit, cholesterol levels, and blood pressure need to be evaluated frequently in order to identify potential problems before they become dangerous. There is also another important factor that rarely appears in discussions about bodybuilding: access to healthcare. Many people imagine that athletes with impressive physiques and strong social media presence are surrounded by doctors, specialists, and full support teams. But the reality is often very different. Even highly dedicated athletes frequently lack proper health insurance, regular blood tests, or specialized medical supervision. Professional bodybuilding, especially outside the very top of the global elite, does not guarantee financial stability. Many competitors invest nearly everything they have into training, diet, supplements, and contest preparation, often placing their health in the background. The problem is that without regular medical supervision, it becomes almost impossible to monitor what is truly happening inside the body. Substances that affect cholesterol, blood pressure, hematocrit, and many other markers require periodic testing. Without those tests, the athlete simply has no way of knowing if something is starting to go wrong. And that's exactly where a concerning situation emerges. Many health problems related to the cardiovascular or hormonal systems do not present clear symptoms in the beginning. An athlete may feel strong, energetic, and performing at a high level while silent changes are already taking place internally. Within bodybuilding, there is a question that frequently comes up: why do some athletes seem to go through decades in the sport without major health issues, while others face complications much earlier? This question becomes especially interesting when we look at legendary figures who remain active and relatively healthy even after long careers. Two names often mentioned in this conversation are Arnold Schwarzenegger and Lou Ferrigno, athletes from bodybuilding's golden era who competed at the highest level and remain connected to the sport even today. This leads many fans to wonder, if they went through intense training routines and exposure to similar substances, why do some individuals seem to handle those challenges better than others? The answer may lie in one fundamental factor: genetics. Every human body responds differently to extreme stimuli. Some individuals naturally possess stronger cardiovascular, metabolic, and hormonal systems. Others, on the other hand, may have a greater predisposition to developing health problems when exposed to the same physical and hormonal stress. There is also another aspect of modern bodybuilding that increases this uncertainty even further. Many athletes end up using hormones in an experimental manner, adjusting dosages based on how their own bodies respond. It often becomes a process of constant observation: doses are increased, reactions are monitored, and new decisions are made accordingly. At the beginning of many athletes' journeys, hormone use often starts relatively moderately. It is not uncommon to hear about protocols beginning with around 200 milligrams of testosterone per week, a dosage that some consider a starting point within this environment. The idea, in many cases, is to observe how the body reacts before making any significant increases. The problem is that within the competitive environment of bodybuilding, that escalation rarely stops there. As the athlete pushes for more muscle mass, faster recovery, and an increasingly impressive physique, the dosages tend to climb. What begins with a few hundred milligrams can gradually evolve into much larger amounts over time. In extreme situations, there are reports of athletes using as much as 5 grams of hormones per week. To understand how massive that difference really is, it helps to compare it with the natural levels found in the human body. A healthy man typically has testosterone levels ranging from about 800 to 1000 nanograms per deciliter of blood. When extremely high external doses are introduced into the body, the natural hormonal balance becomes completely disrupted. This hormonal overload can trigger a series of important internal effects. Among the most common are increased blood pressure, significant changes in cholesterol levels, and elevated hematocrit, which makes the blood thicker. All of these changes place additional strain on the cardiovascular system. When we look at bodybuilding only through stage photos and impressive physiques, it's easy to forget that there is often a price behind it all. The pursuit of extreme levels of muscle mass and conditioning can demand an enormous toll on the human body. And in some cases, the consequences can be far more serious than many people realize. One of the most well-known examples within the sport is Flex Wheeler, widely considered by many fans and experts to be one of the most aesthetic bodybuilders in history. Throughout his career, he earned tremendous respect on the competitive stage. However, years later, he faced one of the harshest outcomes imaginable. Due to severe health complications, he ultimately lost one of his legs. Cases like this serve as a powerful reminder that bodybuilding is not just about discipline, training, and dedication. At extreme levels, the sport can demand a very high physical price. And that raises an important question for both fans and athletes: how far is it worth pushing the body beyond its natural limits? Another topic that often sparks debate within the community involves the so-called death coaches. This controversial term is used critically to describe certain coaches who, according to discussions and reports within the sport, may prioritize competitive results above everything else. When most people think about professional bodybuilders, they picture strength, discipline, and confidence. But behind the massive physiques and confident stage poses lies a reality that often goes unnoticed: the intense psychological pressure that comes with this lifestyle. High-level athletes live under constant expectations for results. Every competition represents months, or sometimes years, of intense preparation. On top of that, there is pressure from sponsors, fans, and social media. The physique must always be improving, bigger, leaner, and more impressive than before. This constant pressure can generate significant mental stress. Many athletes report difficulty shutting their minds off, especially during contest preparation. Thoughts about diet, body weight, appearance, and performance can dominate nearly every part of the day. As a result, issues such as anxiety and insomnia begin to appear more frequently. The body is already under physical stress from intense training and strict dieting, and the mind becomes part of that same cycle of pressure. Getting quality sleep, something essential for muscle recovery, can become a real challenge. To cope with this reality, some athletes turn to sleep medications or stimulants to maintain focus and performance during the day. This combination creates a complex environment where the body is constantly forced to shift between artificial acceleration and artificial recovery. As competition approaches, a bodybuilder's preparation becomes even more intense. During the final phase, known as peak week, every detail of the physique is analyzed with extreme precision. The goal is to reach an almost unreal level of conditioning, where every muscle fiber appears clearly visible on stage. To achieve this extreme level of conditioning, some athletes end up using medications that were originally developed for completely different medical purposes. These drugs were never designed specifically for bodybuilding, but in certain situations they end up being used as additional tools during contest preparation. One example frequently mentioned in this context is Vyvanse, a medication commonly prescribed for the treatment of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Among its effects are appetite suppression and increased focus. Because of these characteristics, some athletes end up using this substance during the final stages of contest preparation. The logic behind this is fairly straightforward. When appetite decreases, it becomes easier to stick to extremely restrictive diets. That can help an athlete reach extremely low levels of body fat, something considered essential for achieving that ultra-dry, razor-sharp look on stage. Behind the bright stage lights and the impressive physiques lies a reality that very few people truly understand. Bodybuilding demands a level of discipline that goes far beyond simply lifting weights in the gym. To achieve the extreme level of muscle definition seen in competitions, athletes must endure constant physical and mental sacrifices. One of the biggest challenges comes from the extremely restrictive diets. During contest prep, many athletes spend months consuming tightly controlled amounts of food, drastically reducing calories and eliminating nearly any excess. The goal is simple: reduce body fat as much as possible so the muscles appear with maximum definition on stage. The problem is that the human body was never designed to stay at extremely low levels of body fat for long periods of time. Body fat isn't just an aesthetic reserve, it performs essential functions in the body, helping regulate hormones, support metabolic processes, and even protect vital organs. When these levels remain extremely low for extended periods, the body begins to experience consequences. Metabolism may slow down, hormone levels can become disrupted, and physical recovery becomes increasingly difficult. In other words, the body starts fighting to restore its natural balance. After examining all of these factors, one thing becomes clear: bodybuilding is an incredible sport. The discipline, dedication, and level of commitment required to build those extraordinary physiques are truly remarkable. Very few sports demand such precise control over both body and mind as high-level bodybuilding. At the same time, it's impossible to ignore that this path also raises important questions. When substances such as anabolic steroids and other medications enter the equation without proper medical supervision, the risks to the body increase significantly. These effects don't impact only the physical body, they can also affect the athlete's mental and emotional balance. For that reason, more and more experts are calling for greater awareness within the sport. Clear information, proper medical monitoring, and honest discussions about the risks are essential so that athletes can make safer decisions throughout their careers. Another crucial factor is proper medical supervision. Monitoring blood work, understanding how the body is responding, and identifying potential problems before they become serious can make a huge difference for long-term health. Science and medicine can be powerful allies when the goal is balancing performance with well-being. In the end, the biggest reflection might be this: pursuing an extraordinary physique is admirable, but that pursuit should never come at the cost of an athlete's physical, mental, and emotional health. Perhaps the real challenge is finding a path where performance and health can exist side by side. And now the question turns to you: do you believe modern bodybuilding is pushing the limits of the human body too far? Leave your comment and join the discussion.